But I'm like, well, wouldn't putting a train back be a great thing? And I'm almost like trying to be like, well, how long is this going to take? And when's somebody going to say, let's go to Reading?
It all kind of started with, a group of, we'll say, stakeholders, right? County government, city government, local government, the different nonprofit communities, business leaders, just kind of saying, we need to turn this around. We need to fix this. Yeah. And those are the conversations that are happening right now. And for probably the first time in a very long time, everybody in the county is rowing in the right direction, in the same direction.
Jack.
What's going on, Freddie?
Chilling, man. Thanks for coming in.
No, thanks for inviting me.
I was reading your LinkedIn.
Okay.
So you're not a politician anymore?
No.
It's a good thing, bad thing? Great thing?
It's a thing. It's a thing. Yeah. So my work is still, I'll say, government and politics adjacent.
Yeah.
So I work for McNeese, Walson, Nurek, which is a law firm out of Harrisburg. They have a couple of government affairs subsidiaries. So I work for their subsidiary CNR. And it's just government affairs with an emphasis on county and local government.
Sounds important.
It's a lot of fun. Every day is different. I really enjoy working on behalf of our clients. I have a wide range of clients from, kind of the big corporations to even some of the smaller nonprofits, even in our own backyard. Really just helping them tell their story to, government, elected officials, and different agencies, and try to help them, move along, continue to serve.
I can feel that, man. I know your LinkedIn said you were like, what is it? You're an advocate for optimism, or?
Yeah. So I like to call myself a relentless optimist.
That's it. I like it. I dig it. Oh boy, who's that? Is that your wife?
No.
Like the movies. You got to turn your phone off.
That's it. I thought I did.
He's got two phones. That's how important this man is, ladies and gentlemen. He's got two phones. I still only have one. Sorry.
I'm trying to get down to one. It's the goal.
I wonder. I'm like, man, why two phones? But I get it. Important people keep the things separate.
It's all show.
Yeah.
It's all show.
It's all flex.
It's all fake.
You got to flex.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to show people what's
I had a time for that. I had a plan. Right on cue.
It's like, make sure you call me so it looks legit.
Yeah, not a minute later.
No, man. So, I always knew of you. I met you in Benchwarmers that day. I'm like,
that's where I was right before I came.
Yeah, the guy. Jack, let's get together eventually. And then it was like time passed, and now I caught you at the GRCA thing.
Yep.
And I was like, let's do it, man. I'm trying to expand my horizons.
That's good.
Trying to get more people in here, trying to learn about more people. There's so many great community leaders and individuals, and you were always on the list, and I'm like, well, let's get Jack in there. And I don't like the agendas. I just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I look at your LinkedIn. That's about as much research as I'm going to do for someone. West Reading Borough Council. It's like, I remember that.
Yeah.
Then I was like, something looks really important. He'll be in momentarily. And then I saw you rolling around out front. I was like, fuck. I got on the LinkedIn real quick. I was like, okay, let's go. Because I like having conversations, like when you, I feel like when you get too prepared, it becomes like
gets a little
thing.
Scripted. And
it's like, whatever, man. But I dig, I just dig your vibe. And I'm like, let's go. Gave me a hug when you came in here. And even that's a vibe in itself. It's like, you were like, bring it in. I'm like, all right, we're going to bring it in here. Let's do it. Because I love that. I love it because I remember just 3 short years ago, you had to ask people if they even wanted a hug.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you got to be a little more careful.
This is bullshit, man. I was like, but I'm glad we're kind of like, back to where we're at. But so West Reading Borough Council.
Yeah.
What were you doing, bro?
Yeah. So I was a council president for about 2.5 years.
Yeah.
The council president before me stepped down, Nick and Bezzy, to actually become the borough manager. And there was a vacancy, and I put my name in, and I got it. Had to do a quick turnaround and run an election. Got elected, And, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed being able to kind of take these big, complex problems and break them down into little parts and, work with people to sort of address those little things and hopefully make a big impact.
What was like some of the things you were dealing with? Like, what was like one of like the major things?
So COVID. So
So you took over during COVID.
so I took over right before COVID.
Oh shit! Like what? Like March, February?
Yeah, like January.
Oh, so January, you're
January.
like, all right, vacancy. Let's take over, see what we
So
can do.
yeah, so I remember sitting down early on with Nick and our solicitor Dan Becker and just said like, all right, like this is what I want to do, and we kind of laid out a little bit of a path forward, some of my priorities. I met with all of the other council members, got an idea of kind of what they want to work on, what do they want to accomplish, why did they want to serve our community, and make sure that was part of my I guess agenda, and really had a good plan moving forward. And I remember getting a phone call from Nick one day saying, "Hey, we just got this really weird letter from the CDC saying that should COVID come to the U.S., prepare for a major disruption of everyday life." And remember, like back then, COVID was just like, just a disease like over there.
Yeah, it's over
like,
there,
it's over
Far
there.
East
It's
or
over there.
whatever.
Somewhere. I don't know, who knows? So I was like, let's talk. Let's have the conversation. Let's think this through. Let's talk about it. So we did some research, kind of what was going on in California, right, the Pacific Northwest, and those initial conversations led to us putting together a small task force. It was myself, the solicitor, public works, the police chief, and the fire chief. And we all sat down and we said, okay, what are we going to do if this comes, right? What are we going to do? What are our contingency plans? How are we going to preserve delivery of essential services? And we met a couple times and ultimately came up with this document, which was just a contingency plan. It was maybe 80 to 100 pages, just kind of outlining the things we would do to protect our people, our staff, our residents, what we would do, if I get sick, or God forbid if I passed, that kind of stuff. It's that kind of contingency planning. And we ended up sharing that document with other communities, other township solicitors, attorneys that are kind of wrestling with the same questions, and said, listen, this is what we're doing. Right now it's all about sharing information. And then, March it all shut down. And then it was like, all right, time to implement. And, it was definitely a crazy time, but that was like, that's what I was walking into. So, a lot of, it was a little crazy. It was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, COVID was really lots.
It was, yeah, it was wild. It was wild.
So everything else after that's fucking gravy.
Yeah, I mean, other than that, it was like, we got that. Like, if we can figure this out, we got that. We got that.
I know, man. That's crazy. And you were there for, it said a year, right?
Yeah, like two and a half years total.
2.5 years. Okay,
Yeah.
2021. Okay.
Yeah.
So you left in 22?
Yeah. So I did not run for re-election. Instead, I ran for county treasurer. And I'm one of those people that's like one or the other.
Right.
Can't do both.
Mm-hmm.
I can't go to Hamburg and say, vote for me to be your county treasurer. I really want this job, but then be, on Sycamore Street being like, hey, I also want to be your councilman. Right. I just think that's disingenuous. And, it was just, it felt like the right time to pass the baton and to move on. And, there's a great team there now. And, it was just time.
Yeah. How do you feel it's going in West Reading?
I think it's great.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I think overall, Berks County, the city, Reading, West Reading, right? Why am I missing? I think everything is moving in the right direction. And I am really excited about our future. I'm really excited about the conversations going on about the train. Us kind of coming out of this post-COVID weirdness. I think there's a lot of energy and excitement. And that's kind of why I do what I do, right? I want to be part of that. I want to help shape it. I want to be active in it. because I think it's all really important that we build the community that we want to live in. It's kind of
Absolutely.
it's up to all of us.
Do you think the train's gonna happen, dude?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, what are you like, 90%?
Nah, 100%, 100%, right?
100% train's gonna happen.
Yeah. Now I think we got to be careful, right? It's not a magic bullet. It's not going to solve all of our problems.
No.
There's still a lot of work that we need to do to make sure that the train benefits everybody, that the economic development that happens is supporting everybody in our community, not just in private interest or developers or whoever, but that we all stand to gain something. It's going to be a powerful, powerful asset.
Yeah, it was funny. I was actually talking to my daughter about it. I was driving her to the airport. She was going back home to Nebraska yesterday, and we were talking about the trains. Because I was like, I'd love to go to Philly and I'd love to do these things, but I just don't even want to deal with this bullshit of driving.
Yeah.
Like I told her, I was like, I finally reached the point of just like, and especially when, you're driving your kid to the airport the day after you drive to New York and back in the same day, you're just like,
a lot.
It's a ton, man. And she was like, well, what, you think it's really going to happen? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I think one of the major things, now this is an outsider looking in. I don't know shit about it. I'm not a government guy. I'm not a politician. I vote. That's the extent of my politics. Okay. And I was like, well, I don't know what's going to happen because like, isn't it owned by like private people? Don't private people own these rail lines? And I'll tell you one thing. It's nice having like a 20-something-year-old as a kid because you can have like real conversations that matter.
Yeah.
It's not like, anything about boyfriends and shit like that. It's like real conversation, But like, talk to me about it because I'm interested in the rail line. Like for me, I'm like, I can't wait to get to Philadelphia quick. I can't wait to go watch a Mets game being played in Philadelphia by train. You know what I mean? I don't want to have to drive and it's a pain in the ass.
Right.
Like when is this going to happen? How long is it going to take? What do we have to do? Like what's up, man?
Yeah. So there's a couple moving parts here, right?
Yeah.
There's obviously all the work that the county is doing on the train front. There's a ton of work happening at the authority level. So remember, there's this like tri-county authority that Berks, Chester, and I think Delco, don't quote me on that, are all members of. And so they're doing some stuff. Where I'm more interested in is, what does the community have to do, right? What do our nonprofits, what do our businesses, what is our economic development priorities? Like, what does that need to look like to make sure, again, that this is something for everybody or as close to that as we can get. And I think what kind of gives me some pause is when you hear people talk about, a transit-oriented development, right? Todd, you're going to hear that a lot, especially as we move closer. I think it needs to be a little bit more guided, right? I think the community needs to be very clear as to like, this is the type of economic development that we need to see. We need to see, just better paying jobs, workforce recruitment, workforce retention is a big issue, right? So there just needs to be a little bit more of a comprehensive discussion before we even get to a plan, a more comprehensive discussion of, well, what are our priorities in a community? And then what do we need to do to make sure we hit those priorities, right? So if we're going to talk about, workforce recruitment and trying to get people to come work in Berks County, what's our housing stock like? Right? Is it affordable? What are the school systems like? Right? So there's all these other conversations that need to happen to kind of support the overarching, let's build a train.
But doesn't the train promote that?
Yeah, but it's not going to happen overnight. And it's not just like, we're not just going to like plop a train and all that stuff's going to magically happen, right? There's stuff that has to happen before we really get to that point. And there's some, like zoning issues and codes and stuff like that. But then there just needs to be the very frank conversation of like, these are the types of businesses that we want to attract in our community. These are the types of businesses that we know are going to support our Main Street communities. These are the businesses that this part of Berks County does a really good job of serving? So, what are the verticals of those different businesses? Just a lot of big picture conversation should happen.
Yeah, because I remember I first got here, and I first moved here in '09,
Mhm.
and I don't know anything about anything when I got here. I'm like,
That's when I moved here.
yeah, it's okay. So it was just close enough for me to get back to Long Island.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we almost ended up in like Stroudsburg, I think, but the apartment got rented out from underneath us. So I went to go sign the lease, and then we decided to check out YO. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
ended up being a better move in my opinion. So I'm like, so what do you do around here? Like, what goes on, and why
Right.
yo missing Pennsylvania? And then it's funny. One day we were at the Friendlies on Park Avenue,
Mm-hmm.
North Park Road, or whatever, and we started searching, and it was like, there's a place called the Pagoda, you know. So I go up to the Pagoda, and we meet this older woman, and she's there, and I'm like, hey, so like, what's this all about? Like, I knew
Yeah.
nothing about anything. Like I said, and she's like, I want to show you some photos. And she busts out, like, I guess her personal photo album or something. Like, one of those, those like, they look like 4x6 books. It's like a four
Mm-hmm.
by six book, and you just keep flipping through it. And I'm looking through it. I'm like, is this like what that was? Reading? She's like, that was Reading. And I'm like, what happened? She's like,
Yeah.
they took the train away. That's what she told me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, why would they do that? And I don't remember much of the conversation after that. My memory's terrible, but she was like, when they took the train away, in so many words, the shit hit the fan.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm like, well, if they put the train back, shouldn't it get better again? And I know there's probably a lot of things that have to happen. And just by talking to you for the past 10 minutes, I'm like, this dude is on another level. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm like, all right, he's a smart man, and that's why I build websites and he runs governments, or, like, that's why we're in what we do. Right. But I'm like, well, wouldn't putting a train back be a great thing? And I'm almost like trying to be like, well, how long is this going to take? And what's holding everybody back? Because when I moved here, somebody said go to Lancaster,
Mm-hmm.
and I went to Lancaster, and I was like, it's all right. And that was '09, 2023, and nobody says it about Lancaster anymore.
Yeah.
Now you go to Lancaster, I'm like, whoa, like some shit went down over here, dude.
Yeah.
Then there's places like Lidditz, and then there's places like my kid says she goes to Allentown
Mm-hmm.
because things are going there. And I'm like sitting here going, when's somebody going to say, let's go to Reading?
I think we're getting there. I think when you look at those communities, right? Lancaster, Allentown, even Pittsburgh kind of went through its little transformation, right? It all kind of started with, a group of, we'll say, stakeholders, right? County government, city government, local government, the different nonprofit communities, business leaders, just kind of saying, we need to turn this around. We need to
Okay.
fix
Yeah.
this. And those are the conversations that are happening right now. And for probably the first time in a very long time, everybody in the county is rowing in the right direction, in the same direction. And that's why I'm just so excited to kind of see what happens next, and to see Reading's transformation, and to see how it's going to impact, communities like West Reading and Wyomissing, and really the whole county.
What do small business owners like us have to do to contribute to the elevation of Reading? Like, I don't know, just educate me, man. And I know I'm throwing a lot of things at you, and it's because I'm genuinely intrigued, about like what has to get done.
Yeah. So I think, if I were in your shoes, there's a lot of boards and commissions and entities that just need people, right? Board members, volunteers. So I think the first step is just showing up and being part of the process, and going to council meetings, asking questions, and just asking that same question you just asked me to the elected officials, to the United Way, to the chamber. Like, how do I get more involved? How do I get more engaged? And bring a friend, right?
Right. In what sense, though? Like, okay, so I get involved. Like, forgive me, it's vague.
Yeah.
It's a vague
Yeah.
answer. Get involved. Yeah, no shit. You know, like, but like, you know, like, what do you like, you know, like how? Like how and what I mean by that is like how and where and what's the best way, like, you know, so things happen maybe quicker. Like,
Mhm.
okay, like I've created a toy drive, you know. I'm not saying it's Toys for Tots, but it helps out like all of it and
Yeah.
opportunity. Okay, so
Yeah.
like that's cool. And um you know, maybe I volunteer for Dream League, you know, which I got to go to tonight, and I got to go help out special needs kids and stuff. And like, okay, that's all fine and dandy.
Mhm.
It's cool, but like, how does that have us moving forward? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, is there like a better roadmap or something? You know?
So overall, I think for individuals, right? Individual business owners and everything. I think it's really important to get involved in um, different community development, economic development committees. I know Why Missing West Reading has one. Um, Giving your input and your feedback as a business owner is really going to be important, especially over the next few years as we navigate this. And I think what's very specific about your business is that it's not, um, you're not just getting people off the street, right? It's not
Right.
like a restaurant, it's not like a bar, it's not like a boutique store. It's a very specific service business. So your perspective is going to be very different than what people are already getting. And then I think because of your exposure to other businesses and groups, you can really bring more people to the table and really help provide more actionable feedback. Because I think that's at this point what everybody needs. If we're going to do this and we're going to implement this program or policy with the intended goal of doing this, how does it really affect our businesses in our downtowns? So going back to like what I did in West Reading a little bit and during COVID, we noticed a lot of our small businesses were having trouble getting PPP loans.
Mm.
So I talked to a couple of them and just kind of said, hey, like, where's the snags? Well, our banker's not really getting back to us. We bank at a bigger bank. It's not really their shtick, all these reasons. So I called Tim Romig over at Customers. And I said, hey,
Right.
like, this is what I'm dealing with. This is the feedback I'm getting. This is what we're hearing. Can customers help? And, they 100% agreed. They created a special portal for businesses to process their PPP loans. They didn't have to be a customer at Customers Bank. It was truly about, this is what we're hearing on the streets. This is what we can do. We can bring people together, and then we can get a solution. And that's what we were able to do to kind of help people. So that's the kind of feedback I think a lot of communities need right now.
Interesting. Yeah, because I mean, I guess a lot of times just like, well, how are you guys gonna make it better? Like, make it better.
Well, also, I'm not a business owner, right? So I don't know the struggles and the pressures that you have to deal with every day. So I'm almost, making decisions, or people are almost making decisions sometimes in a vacuum. And it's not because
Right.
of lack of, not wanting to. Sometimes people just don't show up, they don't participate. It's a lot of reasons.
It's interesting because I guess we're both of Latin descent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and well, our tios and tias like to do shit in weird ways. And one of the first things that I guess I experienced here was I tried to be part of organizations that were Latin centric, I guess, because it's, for lack of a better term, it's my people.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm half, my mom's white. My mom's from Brooklyn, but she's English, Irish, Polish. She's white, blonde hair, blue eyed.
Yeah.
You got my dad's from Ecuador, so I'm half and half. I feel like I'm half Latin, half a million other things.
Yeah.
Um,
I feel the same way. So I'm in that same category.
Yeah.
So my mom's from the Dominican, dad's from Long Island, which is a country, as you know, all to itself.
It's the island.
It's
the island. Don't get it twisted, right? Which I love. I love that I was part of the city, and I love I was part of the island. I got almost two different perspectives, Um, but what I realize is like that I guess a lot of the people, they don't understand that they have to do things a certain way
Mhm.
in order to advance, and I always come to find, I almost feel like I'm always educating my family when I go back to Long Island and
Mhm.
I see my Spanish side of the family. They're like, "Oh, what are you up to? And what are you doing?" And I had this like really intense conversation with my uncle on Sunday, even like talking to him about business
Yeah.
because he's an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur, and as far as people I talk to in my family, I think we're the only two,
Mhm.
honestly. If I miss somebody, my bad. Um, so I guess we always gravitate towards each other and have these
Right.
conversations because we're just on that level. And he was talking to me about how he's like, "Oh, I'm like the cheapest in the area. And, I pride myself on, not having to overcharge people or like whatever the case is, whatever." And I'm like, "Well, why are you the cheapest, man? You've been doing this for like over 30 years, like his business for like over 30, I think maybe
Yeah.
over 40 years." I'm like, "What are you doing?" But I think it's the mentality of sometimes of our community that they stay down here and they don't want to pay taxes and they don't want to do certain things. And it's like, well, why do you keep staying down here? Like when you go ahead and value yourself and you charge up here and you pay your taxes and you do these things, great things happen. So I feel like one of the reasons that I know at least I can comment on is that maybe a lot of our community don't go about things the right way, thinking they're bettering themselves when they really should be doing things the way you're technically supposed to do them, so it betters the community as a whole.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's like a hurdle that I've talked to other people in the community about, and they're still trying to figure out how to get through to them.
Yeah. I think
And
a
I
lot
say
of
it
it's
vaguely because I'm not trying to
yeah,
put
and
like
I know what you mean.
yeah, I'm not
I
trying to
mean, I
like
think it's I think it's like a generational thing sometimes.
mm,
Because I also know, just so many young entrepreneurs of color, um, that, are totally comfortable saying, I'm going to charge X amount
yeah,
and, stay quiet and let them respond, right? Like, because they know their value, they know they work, they know what they're bringing to the table. Um, I think it's great. So I got my start in politics working with minority candidates and really making sure that they understood, their voice, what they offer, their perspective, why it's important, and why representation matters, right?
mm,
Why running for city council or school board or whatever, um, as a young Latino matters, why it's important, why that perspective is important. And there were tons of cultural and generational hurdles that we kind of had to work through. And, um, I'm very proud of that work. I'm very proud of kind of how that evolved.
yeah. Do you think it's finally starting to like leave? Do you think it's finally like they're not like that anymore?
Um, I don't know. I don't know. I think it's important for you to kind of keep having those conversations, right, with
Yeah.
your uncle. I think it's important, whether or what he does with that or not. But I think we need to be a little bit more open about having some of those discussions. I think sometimes they're also a little tough to have.
Yeah, that's the thing that I come to
Yeah.
find. It's like, how do you have that conversation without insulting the person?
Right.
Like, and almost telling them to go against everything they've been taught.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I love my parents dearly. They're
Mm-hmm.
like two of the most important people in my fucking being. But they're stuck in the way they do things.
Yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
just like, no, it doesn't have to be like that. Like just look at your son.
Yeah.
Look at what I've been able to accomplish on my own, you know?
I also think it's important, right, to kind of keep having those conversations with your daughter too, right? I'm
She makes
sure.
me look like she dreams big.
Yeah,
Thank
I love it.
goodness.
I love that.
Yeah. But you're right. You should have those conversations. And I try to instill it into my other daughter, too. Not for my benefit, but for their benefit. And believe me, I'm not perfect at how I had those discussions.
Yeah.
I was a first time dad when I had Ange, and I made a shit ton of mistakes,
Yeah.
even knowing how to talk to them. Um, but yeah, I think those conversations are super important, talking to your kids and letting them know that they can do whatever the fuck they want, man,
Mm-hmm.
and just rocking that boat, because one of the bad things about going back home for me is like you're here and everybody else is still here
Yeah.
because they're stuck in that formula. And you just want to be like, get out of the formula,
Mm-hmm.
change things up. And, and when I'm here, it's frustrating, because I know everybody likes to say, like, well, not everybody's like you. I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
I get it. But why?
Mm-hmm.
Is it really lack of motivation or is it lack of education?
I mean, it might just be just a different sense of priorities, right? Like without knowing your parents or your family, um, they might take a lot of pride. Like I know in my situation with my family, my mom takes a lot of pride in the work that I do, and the way I conduct myself, and she sees it as those are her values playing out in me,
Absolutely.
right? And
Yeah.
and the and I hope that when Alyssa and I have kids, I just keep that same hard work ethic and everything, and just keep passing that all down to our kids and so forth and so forth, and that's its own way of impacting the community.
Yeah, I dig that. The kids, boy, let me tell you, they learn more from watching you than even listening to you. I mean, that I've learned late in life. Because my kid, no matter how much, because man, we're both stubborn.
Mm-hmm.
And man, we fucking had our arguments and banging our heads together. But then you just leave them alone. And then you
They'll figure it
see yourself
Yeah.
in them, no matter how much they don't want to admit it.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, look at you doing the same shit I did.
Yeah, there were some times. So this weekend we were up there visiting my parents, and there were some times where I definitely saw myself in my dad, and I'm sure vice versa.
Absolutely. And you're always just like, oh, fuck. Like I just became what I never wanted to do, and I never wanted to be that guy. And, as I'm standing there in my white New Balance like a dad,
Oh no, I refuse.
I
I
rock. They just
refuse.
fit.
I can't.
They just fit. I'm sorry. I'm just like, I'm that guy. Yeah, but it's just, but then to go back, it's like, how do you have those hard conversations with the community? How do you tell them like nobody's out to get you? It's okay to try to try these new things and try to advance yourself and because it sucks, man. Because I'm a proud Latino, I am. I know I sound like a white dude, like I get it, I mean, I grew up in Long Island. I sound more Italian than I do Spanish because of the freaking accent, like it's just natural at this point, but I'm not Italian at all. You know what I mean? But you just want to be like, just like stop. Like, why can't we succeed? Why can't we come together as a community and do some really good shit? Cause I hate to see, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but gentrification, you know what I mean? Like Jackson Heights, when I was growing up, okay, well, it wasn't the nicest of neighborhoods. All right. It wasn't, but it was colorful.
Right.
I go back now and it's not. And I'm like, you live here? What did I miss?
Yeah.
What happened since I left? Even I always give this example there. I always tell my daughter, I'm like, man, growing up was so messed up and all this shit would happen. It was so dangerous. Went to a Mets game with her one day and it kind of ended early. I'm like, let's go ride through the neighborhood. Let me show you where I grew up just to see what goes on there now. She was like, Dad, I thought you said you grew up in a bad neighborhood. What's so bad about this place, man? Are you bullshitting me the whole time? And I'm like, no, I just don't know what happened, And so I just have all these different concerns, or maybe I don't know if they're concerns, but
no, they're absolutely concerned.
Right? What's going to happen?
And that's when I say we got to make sure we're building, a community that's right for everybody. That we're not pushing people out. We're not creating more barriers. We're creating these safe spaces. I mean, there's ways to do that, and still move the community forward. Right? There's still ways that can happen. And at the smaller level, it starts with sort of these simple conversations. And then at the larger level, right, it's about, getting organized, having, town halls, inviting people, and making your voice heard. And sometimes, it's a spectrum. Sometimes you need a little of both.
It's crazy, man, because I go back and forth. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. And maybe that, I don't fucking know.
Yeah, it's not easy, right? Like,
No, it's not.
and the issues that we're dealing with, like in Redding and Berks County, I mean, it's the culmination of a long confluence of events and circumstances that led us to this point. So to assume that, they're just going to be fixed like that, it's going to take more time.
It's gonna. And it's a bummer too, because like you sit here and like, okay, like me and McCookie, we discuss all kinds of things. And I see him a lot because he's doing all my podcasts. And we're like, well, like we have ideas for businesses. So like, what do you want to do? I was like, oh, I wish I could get a place over here because who wants to go into Reading? And I hate saying that.
Yeah.
And I know things have to go in there, but it's still happening.
But things are moving forward in Reading. And that's see, this is the relentless optimist in me. Like,
yeah.
Things I see all steps, big, small, to step forward. I was talking with Jamar Kelly not too long ago, as the finance director for the city of Reading. And he was telling me how in the past 4 years, they've paved more streets in the city than like they ever have. And like, that's something that people don't really talk about, right? Street paving. But that's like so important to a community, having a safe, clean, walkable street. And the fact that they've done more in 4 years and God knows how long, that's something that's got to be talked about and celebrated. And I'm not shy to tell people when I think they're wrong. But I'm also not afraid to say, like, that's a huge win for the administration. And they're trying hard. And, these are problems that have been here forever and they're not going to be fixed in 4 years, 8 years. You just use like little baby steps.
But how do you do that? Like, I didn't know that. And only now that you mention it, I'm like, well, I did go to that event last week and I parked safely on the street. I didn't really see any.
Yeah, it's progress, man.
Yeah,
It's progress.
But how do you do that? How do you let everybody know that happens? How do you tell the right people that that's happening? How do you tell the community that that's happening? Like, is there a disconnect in that sense?
Oh, I mean, there always is. I think it's just sort of the nature sometimes of local government is they're working on so many things that they really don't have the time to pause and celebrate the wins, celebrate the successes. But I think that recognition is important because it allows everybody to take a pause and say, okay, if this was our process for street paving and it worked, can we apply that process to something else? And what's the next project? What's the next after that? Right. I think there's been so many swings and misses that sometimes we forget to just celebrate getting on a base,
Yeah, and it's a good point. But what sucks is that the bad news and the bad stuff travels so much quicker.
Yeah.
I mean, there's Facebook pages right now dedicated to making fun of Reading.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just like, but where are the wins, man?
That's what we got to do. That's what we got to do. We got to
and maybe that's something that
maybe we can work on that. Maybe we could find a couple wins and just talk about the wins and celebrate the wins.
You're right. And I think maybe that's the number one problem because, when you're a small business owner and you're sitting there going, how come I don't have enough clients? How come I'm not doing enough business?
Yeah.
Well, right away you start to think, well, maybe outside of, customer service and the product and all that jazz, like, are you using social media correctly? Are you doing your good old advertising? Are you doing your marketing? Do you have something in place? Well, does the city of Reading have something in place for the wins?
Yeah.
Does it? And if it does have something in place, like, okay, we have social media, but do people know that? Like, how many people do follow the city of Reading if that's a thing?
Well, that's it. And is that the best way to communicate that, right? Obviously, if your goal is, to notify, right, you just got to quantify some of this. You got to set some goals and you got to come up with different strategies and different ways to communicate it. But I also think a big part of it is seeing is believing, right? People have to see the progress. So, there's a ton of, and I can't remember all of them, but a ton of financial wins of the city moving in the right direction. That's kind of hard to for people to take stock in and to
Mm.
acknowledge. But when you start seeing freshly paved streets or, new sidewalks or no like trash or the trash being picked up on time, I mean, those are all big, big things. That's, in my opinion, core to what government is, right? For me, it's all about essential services and making sure that the government delivers those essential services efficiently. So when that happens, they should be celebrating.
And I feel like that's a thing that I don't think anybody talks about that enough.
Mm-hmm.
I think people maybe they rely too much on our schools to do that for us and expect us to remember when we get out of school.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure at some point in elementary school, they were like, government's there to make sure you can get down the block okay without breaking your face because
Mm-hmm.
they pave a road. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure I was taught that, but the problem is that they probably told me that shit in fourth grade,
Right.
where it doesn't mean a damn thing to me,
And government's different. I think everyone, when you say government, I think everybody either thinks of the state or the federal government. They don't think about the county, the
They
municipalities,
never
the
do.
school districts, right? They don't understand where everybody fits in that puzzle of getting shit done.
Yeah. That's why I try to remind everybody, election day, like, stop just voting on the sexy elections, I call it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, the president's coming up. Nobody gives a shit. Honestly, like, I know it's all important, but I could give two shits about presidential elections.
Oh yeah, so when I ran for county treasurer, that was my biggest struggle, was being able to explain to people not only what is the county treasurer, but why is this so important?
Right.
And then for them to then understand why my vision for that office was, in my opinion, the way to move it forward. So it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot. It's hard.
Hell yeah, it's
It's
hard.
hard.
I mean, I'm like just sitting here trying to take in everything you're laying out for me, but it's cool to have those conversations because you know what? Sometimes people are honestly they're too embarrassed to ask the question because they don't want to feel like they're stupid.
And I think the other part is like people are really jaded about government right now. Right?
Oh yeah, they don't trust anything.
It's been a rough past few years, and it doesn't feel good. It doesn't bring good opinions, good emotions, and people are jaded. And I think when we start having those conversations about government and elections and different offices, it's important to start with the local side first, because these are chances are the people that you're talking about and you're voting for are your neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see them out on the avenue. You're going to see them at the supermarket, right? They're your friends.
They're people like us.
They're people with other jobs, and
they live here.
Trying to figure it out just like us, right?
Right, exactly.
So I think we got to kind of level set some expectations there. But they're getting a lot of stuff done. Yeah. They're getting a lot of stuff done, and the fact that if we could figure it out at the local level and getting things done, I think there's a lot of hope then for the state, and then that that goes up to federal. But I think that's where a conversation needs to start, is what's going on here locally.
There's a big disconnect because at the same time that I love having conversations with my kids and other young people, they say some crazy ass shit, and I'm like, where do you even get this from? But they get it from social media.
Yeah, it's rough. I hear all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
I hear stuff that makes me pause and think, wow, that was incredibly insightful, and makes me kind of do a change of opinion and paradigm shift. And then I hear shit where I'm just like, dude, what? Like, what?
There's a lot of that.
And everybody says it with the same level of confidence, right? Like, oh no, this is the way it's supposed to be done, dude. So, but I think everybody in government, in politics, genuinely wakes up in the morning and says, how can I make my community better?
Yeah.
I think there's probably a little bit more, I don't know what the word is, I don't know, a little bit more self-serving interest sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
But I still think that core belief is still there.
Yeah, I think at a local level, it's
Definitely the
there.
local. Definitely
It's
local.
there.
Definitely local.
National level, it's a shit
It's a
show.
little it's a little weirder. It's definitely a little weirder. But I do still think, for the most part, I'll put a little asterisk there. For the most part, people are trying to make a difference and make their community better and doing what they think is right, for the country. And luckily we get opportunities to say yes, we agree and vote for it, or no, we don't agree and vote them out.
Yeah.
So
And I think at a local level, it's most important because it's where you live, man.
what's cool about the local level is you get to meet these people
Yeah.
and you get to really talk to them and you get to know them, and you can slide in the DMs of the commissioners and ask them questions, and you'll get a response.
It's
You'll
true.
get a response, and you can see them out and about, and they'll come up to you and they'll talk to you. And I don't think people take advantage of that enough.
They don't.
Yeah.
I think they're afraid. I think because they see them as maybe more important than they are, which is false. And I've met all the
Yeah.
commissioners. They don't think of themselves like that at all.
The work is serious.
Mhm.
The work is important. But they, in my opinion, dealing with them and working with them and becoming friends with them over the years, is they're still very humble, and they understand that real servant leadership mindset, which is, again, why I think Berks County is really poised to move forward in a really big way, just because you have a whole team there. And it's not just the elected officials, it's the regular people who just work there at the county as jobs, the staff, the directors. Everybody in that courthouse, I feel like, wakes up and says, okay, how do we do this?
Yeah. I dig that, man. Well, Jack, I appreciate you coming in and enlightening me.
No,
For sure.
I really am glad. Thanks for the invite. Love the conversation. We
Yeah,
have
and
to find more
and
wins to celebrate. We got to think about
we
that.
do, man. And I feel like that's such a good idea. And I remember talking to somebody at that event last week, GRCA. Oh,
There are
maybe
only a couple of people there.
only a couple.
Yeah.
But I want to get all the pimps in a room. I was like, let's get all the pimps in a room. Like all the people that everybody knows that's around here.
Yeah.
Let's just be real. Everybody's important, but some of them just make themselves known a little bit more, and
Mhm.
people pay attention to those individuals a little bit more. And I was like, how do we get them all on here?
Yeah.
And have that discussion,
Yeah.
and send it out to everybody here, and maybe change not even some, a lot of mindsets, man.
Well, and I think it's educating, right? So a big part of what I do as part of my day job, I think, talk about misconceptions and stuff. Like, when people think government affairs, I think they think House of Cards or some other dark twisted shit. At our core, right? I think I'm a storyteller, and I tell my client stories, and I think that's really important, right? Is we got to tell our community stories, and we got to
Yeah.
get those other storytellers, because it's not just one person; it's everybody. We got to get all their stories, and we got to educate and advocate, and hopefully it moves everything forward.
That's a good title. Like storytellers. I dig
Yeah.
it. Yeah, because pimps is probably not politically correct anymore. And I don't mean it in a derogatory sense either. I just mean those cats at, storytellers. Where the storytellers at?
Kind of
I
the
dig
cat's
it.
at.
I dig it. I think that's education's number one, bro. If I've learned anything in the past time that we've been talking, it's education. There's a lack of education, big time, and there's more shit information just going out there. And people like listening to the bad shit because it's just the way it is. If it bleeds, it leads. It's one of the major things.
Yeah, and look, and if you want to believe everything is moving in the wrong direction, or if you want to believe that things aren't going right, yeah, there's plenty of stories and things that you could point to, but that doesn't help, right? That doesn't change anything. I think it's important to kind of look at the whole picture, look at the good. Why is it good? Why is it moving forward? Can we replicate that? Look at the bad. Why is it bad? Why aren't we doing progress? What's going on there? And just try.
Yeah.
Just try.
I'll take it, man. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you taking the time.
I appreciate you. Keep it up.
Thanks, man. Hey, thanks for checking out this episode of Fred Talk. If you totally got into what you just saw, make sure you like and subscribe so you never miss another episode. Check out the playlist because there's other cool people too. And if you can't watch all the time, check it out on any podcast outlet. Don't forget, your Uncle Freddie loves you. Peace.